Hello, welcome to the sideboard here at the StarCityGames.com Modern Open in Baltimore, part of the SCG Tour, brought to you by Ultimate Guard. I'm Nick Miller alongside Reid Duke, longtime SCG Tour regular, big-time winner, one of our top 10s in terms of wins, top 8s, invitationals, all that kind of stuff.
Wow, I didn't know that. It's flattering.
But we want to talk about Modern today because, on Twitter you said, one thing, when Standard's not great, luckily there's Modern to play, and now you come down here and you play a deck that is near and dear to your heart, just old-fashioned Jund.
Yep.
So we want to know why.
Very old-fashioned.
A, what's so good about Modern right now that's kind of different and kind of drawing you toward it, and then B, we'll talk about the deck of choice, Jund, when there's so many options in this format.
Well, I'll start by saying I'm having a lot of fun with Modern right now. There have been periods in my Modern career where sometimes I felt frustrated with the format, like certain decks were too good or the format was too fast, but with some recent new printings of cards and some recent bannings, I think the format's in a really healthy place right now where it's still very fast and punishing, which is kind of what a lot of people like about the older formats, but it's not too oppressive where you feel like you're dead on the first or second turn of the game too often. So yeah, I think having Death Shadow as maybe the most popular successful deck in the format, that's not as bad as having something like Splinter Twin or even like Infect, which are just a bit more punishing and frustrating to play against, in my opinion.
Yeah, a lot of pros have kind of been on record in the past, having problems with Modern, but a lot of players now are talking about, it's more balanced, kind of more fair and wide open than it has been in a long time.
Yeah, I think so.
Which leads you to be playing Jund, a deck that, you have Grand Prix top 8s, you've done a ton of work with it. I kind of expected to see you on a Death Shadow deck this weekend because you did play it at the Unified Grand Prix, but you're just back on regular Jund. You're X and 2, there's only 2 rounds to go. How'd you come to this deck choice? And, you have a couple of new cards. Cedric has been daggering you on coverage a lot about how this deck's kind of not changed in a long time, but talk about how you came to this deck and the card choices.
Well, I'll be honest with you, Nick. I expected to be playing Death Shadow also. I really liked the Abzan Death Shadow deck that I played at the Unified Grand Prix. But in the week or 10 days leading up to this tournament, I found out about this Devoted Druid Vizier of Remedies combo and that this Abzan Collected Company deck is going to be really popular and that it's quite good. And I don't feel very comfortable playing that matchup with Death Shadow or with Abzan, but I do feel really comfortable playing against Collected Company with Jund. In particular, Dark Confidant, Scavenging Ooze, and Grim Lavamancer, as well as just having extra cheap removal, turns what I think is a pretty dicey matchup into something that I actually feel pretty good about. And I'm 3-0 against the Collected Company decks this weekend. But, the real reason, as we both know, is just that Jund is my deck. It's an old favorite, but the Collected Company deck, I think, is a reason to choose Jund over some of the similar options that are out there.
Yeah, it's nice to see someone playing a deck they've been playing forever, and it's clear that it's your deck. You've had it for a while. Almost all the cards are signed.
Yep.
You're talking about upgrading, Grim Lavamancers and such, so, the deck has some character as well, and, you've been playing it for a while.
Somebody commented on, my thought seizes, and almost every card in the deck is just so kind of played and worn around the edges, and it's these cards they're part of my collection, but these are to be played with. These I'm never trading or selling or anything. These are my cards.
What else do you think about the Modern format right now? Now, clearly the Counters Company deck has kind of popped up over the last couple of weeks, and then the Death Shadows deck has had a huge resurgence, ever since the Grand Prix where everybody, 3 of the top 4 were playing it. Those 2 decks are still the top deck, but Affinity's kind of coming back, Burn's still around. And then when you look at the metagame breakdown, more than 20 of the 34 decks here are just one-ups.
Yep. Well, the thing about Modern is it's so powerful, and there are so many different, extremely powerful options out there that if you just sort of hit things right and, you play Burn when people are skimping on their Burn hater, when there are a lot of good matchups out there for you, you're going to do well. Burn's just an extremely good, powerful deck. And the same goes for all the ones you mentioned, Affinity, Tron, Eldrazi, everything like that. If you hit right, it's a great deck. So while we could probably make a general blanket claim like Death Shadow and Collected Company are the 2 best decks in the format, there are, dozens and dozens of completely viable strategies out there, and I picked Jund, which is, nobody would say that Jund is the best deck in Modern, but it's been pretty good for me this weekend.
Yeah, in fact, you're the only person on day 2 playing just traditional Jund. So you're still here, and the people, make jokes that the deck hasn't changed much, but you do have a lot of new cards, from Chandra, Torch of Defiance to Fatal Push, one of the biggest, most impactful cards on Modern that's come out recently.
Yeah, if you had told me a year ago that I would be playing Jund without 4 Lightning Bolts in my main deck, I would have said you were crazy, but I have only 2 Lightning Bolts now and 4 Fatal Push, which I think is better. Both it's great at killing Death Shadow and Tarmogoyf, but also turn 1 black mana is a lot easier and less painful than turn 1 red mana, so if I play against something like Burn, like boom, Fatal Push your Goblin Guide instead of having to fetch, shock, Lightning Bolt. It's a big difference in a matchup that runs on thin margins like that.
Now, we've seen you, on the SCG Tour on and off this year. We saw you at the Team Open in Baltimore, earlier this year. I got to ask, because you played with Gerard and Boswell there, what do we got to do to get the Peach Garden Oath to show up to Team Constructor? We got 2 more coming up this year. I think everyone would love to see that team kind of come together.
I would love it too. We love team tournaments, and we'll go pretty far out of our way to play. The problem is we're all geographically pretty separated. Those guys are from the West Coast, so it's tough for them to make like a long flight to play an Open. But maybe if there was one more centrally located in the country, or if there was a team invitational or something, some kind of like big ticket item like that, I'm sure I could get those guys. I could twist their arm a little bit.
All right, I'll talk to the people and see what we can do. Maybe going a little closer, more Midwest focused for you. All right, well, Reid, you have 2 more rounds to go. You're X2. You need 1 more win to lock up a top 8 here, it looks like. So we wish you the best of luck. Thanks for joining me here in the sideboard. Stay tuned to StarCityGames.com all weekend long for the action here in Baltimore.